Back part 3 of my allegation report to Sergeant Fehler regarding the allegations against Constable Conrad ERBES. This is part 3 of the letter, and we're going to keep going, guys, from allegation number 7. In the previous part 2, we went through the allegations 3, 4, 5, 6, and we read the detailed security report that was redacted and never disclosed to me for 19 months by anybody until I had Sergeant Fehler, who is the professional responsibility unit investigator. I got him to go after the report, and then with much delay, he finally gave me the report. And so we can go back track and take a look at that real quick before we move on with the 7th allegation, which is discrimination and persecution of my fundamental rights and beliefs, my right to peaceful assembly, Section 2C, my right to freedom of press, Section 2B, my right to freedom of association, Section 2D, as per our Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, guys. We'll take a quick look back at the detailed security report that was not included and redacted name of the Commissioner, Steve Wraith. So here is the report, guys, and what's really suspicious about the report is right off the fact that I'm labeled a suspicious activity person/vehicle. Why? Because I'm parked on the side of the road with Canadian flags, and this report date was again January 30th, and the incident was January 29th, so a day later in the evening by Stephen Wraith, 7340 security officer. And the date of the incident, January 29th. The time of incident, 4:41 p.m. Because I'm parked on the road, legally on the side. Yes, I'm parked there much of the day. I'm allowed to be parked there much of the day. If you have a problem with me paying for parking, and maybe I didn't keep the meter up to date, well then send over the parking pay meter man, woman, or bylaw. So all this leads is, why are the police? Let's see, it says police involved. Why? Why did the KSOC... The KSOC, that's the security top of the commissionaires. They're guys on the radios who sit in the office and deal with the radio of all the security guys, the commissionaires. Why did they call the police instead of bylaw? What happened with that? Why are they labeling me a protester taking a boat at City Hall versus a citizen parking, overstayed parking? And we know the commissionaires, I interviewed a commissionaire, they do not deal with parking whatsoever. The commissioners don't deal with parking. If there's an overstayed car parking for a day or even 2 or even 3, it is not their business. So it's not necessarily Stephen Wraith who is the problem. It's actually the commissioners at the KSOC that are prejudiced against the Freedom Convoy and its participants and our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I'm seeing it now, the KSOC guys, the City of Kelowna, the commissionaires, they are the ones that are prejudiced and violated my Charter of Rights and Freedoms in combination with ERBES. And then, of course, Bylaw Hartman as well, as they all pushed their fabrication of the rules upon me. Anyways, police service file number 20000225582, 2022-5582. And we took a quick look and read the entire security report, and there was a few important points that I was going to highlight. Okay, so I just highlighted some important parts to make it easier for you guys to follow along from Steve Wraith's report, which is misdated February 29th for some reason, unless it was written later. But we can assume it is written on the January 29th. And let's jump into it. Security took photographs of 3 vehicles that had a GAN stationed on Water Street. These were sent to the security department of the commissioners, the KSOC. Sorry, I'm not sure what that stands for at this point. And RCMP were notified as an information-only file. So you have 3 vehicles parked on the side of the road with all the other vehicles after a rally, an hour after the rally. And so why is KSOC and RCMP being notified in the first place? They were not required to respond at the time. Okay, so it says 2 of the vehicles left on their left, and one of the vehicles was a light blue colored Chevy 3500 HD with BC license plate KW7192. So my first question is why is security taking pictures of vehicles? I just explained that commissioners, when I interviewed a guy on a random topic about what they deal with, people on the sidewalk, they deal with people on the sidewalk. A lot of youth fighting actually is one of the main things, making sure kids aren't fighting each other. delinquents, etc. They do not. I asked him about what if a car was parked there overnight for a couple nights, or he says, if we saw a vehicle parked there for many days that looked like it was abandoned, we would make a note of it for an information file only. We would never contact the RCMP and tell them this vehicle has been parked here. It would be just a note of it in case the RCMP came looking later on, because obviously if there was an investigation and then all of a sudden I have a report of the vehicle down there, which would be useful. But so why is security taking photographs of vehicles, guys? Of protesting vehicles, people exercising their fundamental right to peaceful assembly, okay? There's the first prejudice against the Freedom Convoy from the commissionaire's top brass in the company. One of the vehicle, okay, so security informed KSOC that the vehicle was present and informed KSOC that the security would monitor for overnight camping. So again, Wraith is not a problem here. He's not a problem. He's not violating my charter of rights. It's just, why is he working for the KSOC in turn identifying protesters who are parked there? That's not their job. Their job is the sidewalks. Their job is the city sidewalks, not the street parking. So, and monitor for overnight parking. Yeah, that's fine. You shouldn't even be doing that in the first place, because that's not your job. But that's bylaw. But so anyways, regardless of that, at approximately 1921 hours while en route patrol, Wraith noted the RV from earlier parked on Water Street in Queensway was still parked there. Good for me. I'm allowed to be parked there. Security informed KSOC that it was occupied and it appeared as though they were going to stay for the night. Well, because a person's in their vehicle at 7:30, 1921 hours, that's the night to you. I'm there till like 8 o'clock maybe, or 8:30 or 9, and that's staying the night. Maybe you should go and inquire, Mr. Steve Wraith, instead of sending your messages to KSOC, who is clearly going to violate the charter rights of all these protesters and has an agenda to do so. And so security informed KSOC and asked for bylaw service to attend, which is fine. Still shouldn't have ever happened in the first place. You're allowed to be parked there. Maybe you should investigate or leave it alone until it's freaking 6 a.m. in the morning as per bylaw ticketing. KSOC informed security that the RV had been parked there since 10 a.m. that same day. At 1924 hours, KSOC informed security that the RCMP had been notified. Why is KSOC calling the police, the RCMP, for parking legally on the street for longer than you think is reasonable for these protesters? That's what's going on. At 1956 hours, RCMP arrived to Stewart Park. KSOC was informed. Security met with the officer, which is Constable Irnnie, and explained that there was concern the person in the RV was going to take a boat for the night, and due to the fact that the RV was a known protester, security wanted assistance relaying to the individual that he could not camp out front of. So Steve Wraith knew I was exercising my fundamental right, exercising my right to peaceful assembly and association. And so for that reason, he's afraid to knock on the door. Yeah. And then RCMP Constable Irnnie, who's the only one who showed up at that point, informed security that the subject had a propensity to be verbally aggressive and belligerent with city staff, including bylaw, fire department, and RCMP. And so there you have, Irnnie is a fan of IrnieracingNews, and he really wants to stick it to me. And so he says that I'm an aggressive, belligerent person, and then he went on to deal with me. And then we skipped through the entire allegation. At 2300 hours, the vehicle and Marcel were released from the scene, and security, bylaw, and RCMP stood down. Marcel left at 2301. So 3 hours, it says I was released, which means I was detained for 3 hours, violating my charter of rights, guys. How ridiculous is this? This shows such prejudice as you read through this, considering also the Irnnie in his synopsis. So anyways, let's get back on topic. 9 minutes here. Oh, sorry about that. We got a little off topic here, but on topic, but just in the details of previously talked about. So again, my allegation, discrimination, and persecution of my fundamental rights and beliefs, like I said. You're parked here. You're unwelcome here. Let's check out one more time for people who haven't seen it.
Complaint.
What's the complaint? What's the complaint?
It's available for you.
What is the complaint? What's the complaint?
But we've already explained that.
No, I don't know what the complaint is. I don't know why you knocked on my door.
You're parked here. You're unwelcome here.
Unwelcome?
Correct.
Were you discriminating against me?
How am I not welcome here? I live here. I'm from Kelowna. I've been living here a long time, freaking 39 years. Holy smokes. So, notice of application with affidavit. This is my affidavit that I did with the notice of application for charter right argument on April 25th. Number 26, the actions of the police, and in particular the actions of Constable Irnes as described above, constitute an improper and unlawful pattern of harassing conduct intended to punish the accused for exercising his rights guaranteed under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and further to intimidate the accused from exercising rights guaranteed under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, including attending at and reporting on future gatherings of persons who are protesting against government actions and associating with like-minded persons, and accordingly those actions constitute a breach of the following fundamental charter rights of the accused. A, the right to freedom of peaceful assembly under Section 2C of the Canadian Charter of Rights. B, the right of freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of press and other media of communication under Section 2B of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And C, the right of freedom of association under Section 2D of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Also, 27, material facts. The action of the police, including the actions of Constable Irnes as described above, constitute a breach of the accused right under Section 7 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, including the accused right to make full answer in defense and to be free from acts of intimidation, and constitute an abuse of the court's process. So Constable Irnes violated my Charter of Rights in several ways. Intimidation. Number 1, intimidation tactics at court. Act of intimidation before the start of both trials. Number 2, you are not welcome here. Quote, is the motive behind him harassing me? Question mark. You're unwelcome here is a different concept than, sir, you're not legally allowed to be here. 3, Irnes was unable to provide appropriate reasoning or an actual complaint for reasonable and probable grounds to instigate me in the camper and require my identification for the events on January 29th, guys. So there you have it. That is my allegation number 6, interfering with my process to a fair and timely trial, and charter right violations. Wow, that's intense. Let's move on to allegation number 8, oppressive conduct, equipment, mishandling of property. Constable Irnes threatened my safety, threatened damaging my property, and created a liability for the RCMP and Mario's Towing by instructing the Mario's Towing operator, whom are in contract with the RCMP, to hook up to my motor vehicle with me in the camper. Quote, structure mounted upon a motor vehicle, end quote. That's from the Motor Vehicle Act regulations. The motor vehicle with camper and dirt bike carrier extending from the rear hitch is an unsafe load and not towable unless the dirt bike carrier was removed, rear drive shaft knuckle was removed, and person in camper exited and handed over the keys to remove the e-brake. Irnes directing Mario's Towing to hook up to the front wheels of the motor vehicle is a threat to my safety in the camper, an act of intimidation to get me out of the camper, and improper use of police powers. So back to my notice of application with affidavit material facts. Number 10, at approximately 9:26 p.m., Constable Irnes instructed tow truck driver Dave Jarman to hook up to the truck, which had the camper unit mounted on it with the accused inside. The accused instructed the tow truck driver through the camper window not to hook up to the truck, as he was being harassed by Constable Irnes and was waiting for the watch commander. Oh, yes. So there you go. That's the allegation number 8. Now we're going to move on and finish this up, guys. We're almost done. Allegation number 9, intent for improper arrest. Constable Irnes stated in his synopsis 1 dated March 1st, 2022 that he wanted to arrest the individual inside the motorhome for causing a disturbance, but stated he couldn't because the individual was inside the motorhome. Following the Freedom Convoy Rally on January 29, 2022, I was inside the camper, mounted upon the motor vehicle, in the freezing winter, parked legally with all the windows and doors shut as I worked on the day's news video edits, talking on the phone and cooking pizza in the oven. There was no disturbance before Constable Irnes arrived and started threatening the defendant. Irnes was the disturbance. Furthermore, it can be hard not to argue with an officer when they are threatening or addressing you for something that isn't a crime. And so Irnes synopsis 1, March 1st, 2022, we're going to quote some of it. Irnes noted MVAR violations with the vehicle and explained those to Irnie in an effort to get him to leave. Irnie refused and continued reciting American-style legal jargon as reasons, then demanded that a fleet captain or watch commander attend scene. Irnie screamed at police numerous times. Irnie would shut various windows of the camper and then go to another window and demand to be spoken to from that window. Irnie did repeatedly cause a disturbance multiple times by screaming, shouting, attracting the attention of multiple pedestrian and motor passers. The male was not arrested, as was inside the motorhome. We're going to end the quote in the middle of that. So let's take a look at BC case law, section 175 CCC, about causing a disturbance and being an arrestable offense. The police officer cannot be the cause of the disturbance. The police officer cannot be the cause of the disturbance. If the disturbance starts as a result of the arrival or contact with the police, this charge is not applicable. Yelling and screaming at the police is not a disturbance. Police cannot be disturbed. It must be the public that are disturbed. The fact that a crowd gathers is not necessarily evidence of the disturbance. They will be portrayed as curious onlookers, not disturbed members of the public. And here you have a little information on that from the Justice Institute, British Columbia, section 175 CCC, causing a disturbance. And, so it goes into all that we just talked about. So just to quickly give you what is causing a disturbance. Indecent exhibition. Number one, everyone who, not being in a dwelling house, causes a disturbance in or near a public place by fighting, screaming, shouting, swearing, singing, or using insulting or obscene language, by being drunk, or by impeding or molesting other persons, or B, openly exposes or exhibits an indecent exhibition in a public space, C, loitering in a public place and in any way obstruct persons who are in that place, or D, disturbs the peace and quiet of the occupants of a dwelling house by discharging firearms or by disorderly conduct in a public place, or who, not being an occupant of a dwelling house, compromised in a particular building or structure, disturb the peace and quiet of the occupants of the dwelling, on and on and on and on. Okay. And before I finish on that case law, here he has: the police officer cannot be the cause of the disturbance. If the disturbance starts with the result of arrival or contact with the police, this charge is not applicable, like we said earlier. So, continuing on, notice of application affidavit number 23, despite issuing two different tickets alleging non-criminal allegations and filing a civil claim in a court without jurisdiction to hear the allegations, and alleging in evidence that the accused had caused a disturbance, no charge of criminal conduct has been formally alleged by Constable Irbees through the filing of a criminal or other information. Irbees demonstrated on multiple occasions on video that he wanted me outside the camper. The way Constable Irbees acted with neglect of duty, improper attitude, and used oppressive conduct tactics towards me in an effort to get me outside the camper, I had reasonable probable grounds to believe that if I stepped outside the camper, Constable Irbees would use unlawful action towards me. For example, on the night of January 29, 2022, Irbees clearly demonstrated that he didn't understand a camper is a structure mounted upon a motor vehicle as per MVAR, and how I wasn't in the motor vehicle and I controlled the motor vehicle to be required to identify with my driver's license. Any reasonable citizen then could be of the understanding that if I stepped outside the camper and met Irbees on the sidewalk, he would likely have demanded that I show him my driver's license and threatened to arrest me for refusal to provide a driver's license or ID. I was absolutely terrified to step outside the camper. I had to wait for Irbees to leave me alone before I could leave. I was detained for nearly 3 hours from 8:07 p.m. till 11 p.m. when Corporal Hall finally got Irbees to leave, had the tow truck unhook, and guaranteed my safety to leave without any further reprisal from Irbees. Well, unfortunately, that guarantee didn't stand up, Corporal Hall, because then further reprisal happened at the December 14th court date with another ticket outside the courtroom when he asked me how I was going to plea, and I said not guilty, and he said, in that case, here's another ticket, and here's your cease and desist. And then again, March 29th, holding up the courtroom while he's downstairs on doing personal business and then serving me a notice of claim in that courtroom, and then delaying the next ticket. So we have another trial date coming up October 30th, and the lawsuit that was dismissed by Judge Tam, guys. It was dismissed by Tam, and Irbees should have known, or ought to have known, that you can't sue somebody for libel and slander in provincial court. And here's the copy of the settlement conference record in Provincial Court of British Columbia, Small Claims Court, registry file number 136850, courtroom 159, Judge Andrew Tam. And September 20th, it wasn't too long ago, guys. Here you have Conrad ERBES by MS Teams Audio and Marcel Irnie by MS Teams Video. And what do we got? The claim is dismissed on the basis that as a provincial court judge, that there isn't jurisdiction to hear the case pursuant to Section 3.2 of the Small Claims Act, and then signed. Yeah, good job. Dismissal order, done. Bravo, Herbes, for wasting Judge Tam's time, wasting everybody's time, costing taxpayers money, when you should have dismissed your own case after you learned about what you've done. Okay, guys, so and back to the notice of application, where I talked about the scenario guaranteeing my safety without any further reprisal from Herbes, which didn't happen. Notice of application number 7, the accused contacted RCMP by phone at 3:38 p.m. to find out what was going on and seek confirmation of the identity of the person who knocked on the camper door, and was informed that the person he had been interacting with was Constable Herbes, registration number 278150. The accused asked the RCMP to send the watch commander or other supervisor down to the scene to mediate the situation, as Constable Herbes was acting in a manner which caused the accused to fear he would be subject to unlawful action by Constable Herbes, including the unlawful use of physical force. All right, guys, and there was just a few questions at the end between that Sergeant Fehler asked me, and I answered them. But we went over my allegations, and so thanks for sticking around for part 3, guys. You can see it's been quite a frustrating, long process, but I must seek accountability and transparency for Herbes and the RCMP and the City of Kelowna commissionaires, and there's some big problems which going on in the top of that commissionaires, clearly showing prejudice against the people who are allowed and should be exercising their right to peaceful assembly and association, and of course my right to freedom of press. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you have any questions or what you agree or don't agree with. I'll keep you guys up to date what I'm going to do with this October 30th court date. I could always have it moved to provincial court for a charter violation, or just go to judicial justice. I could even have it apply for it because it's been over the 18 months as per Jordan. I have a right to a fair trial in a reasonable amount of time. So I could just have it thrown out for the charter application, or a right to a reasonable trial in a reasonable amount of time as per Jordan, or I could go to trial just for to play it out. But then there would be multiple trials based on time. It takes a while to get through them all, right? Especially when you're not just going and getting stamped and out the door, because we got to do a full cross-examination, etc. of Herbes. Cheers.